I was walking the streets of Dublin, Ireland at 9 a.m. on the first Tuesday morning in September of 2024. It was rainy, but the streets were already starting to liven up. One of the first things I'd noticed about Dublin is how much of its ancient history it had managed to preserve, not only medieval, but pre-medieval. It was a beautiful combination of the new and the old, maintaining its heritage while also looking forward into the future. And since I was in Dublin, I knew I had to visit the Guinness Brewery. It was as easy as following the horses, walking through the big wooden doors, and following that beautiful, beautiful smell. When touring new places, I almost always opt to go at my own pace, self-tour, rush through the things that I don't find as interesting and linger on the places that I can't keep my eyes away from. The first leg of the tour explained the science behind the brewing of Guinness. Everything from the double hops to the cool, clear water to the barley to the slow process, the nitrogen, the yeast. Everything that was put into Guinness was obviously meticulously done and worked out over the course of the last 200 plus years. The brewmasters clearly treat the process as an art just as much as a science, and you could feel every bit of love, attention, care that was put into every leg of the process. And just beyond the science was the history, the tools, the way that the brewing process had evolved over the last 2+ centuries, and how so many things not only had modernized, but even more amazingly, how the process had mostly remained the same. The kegs, the fermentation, the nitrogen, watching the coopers work in and of itself was worth the trip alone. This was truly the kind of place that I probably could have stayed at for another 2 or 3 hours, reading everything there was to read, taking my time, trying to explore every little facet. But just beyond the tools, the science, the history was the first tasting room. That's right, I said the first tasting room. It's one thing I quickly learned about the Irish is they are incredibly proud of their potent potables. So just beyond the beautiful artwork in the neon hallway was an incredibly friendly bar staff that were more than generous with the way that they poured. I think the hardest part about drinking Guinness is having to wait for it. You have to wait for the nitrogen to settle. But once it darkens up, that's a tasty beverage. What I wasn't aware of before visiting the brewery was just how prolific their advertising campaigns were. Did you know that back in the day, Guinness's entire advertising campaign was centered entirely around zoo animals? Everything from seals to tigers to kangaroos, but most famously, the toucan. For some reason, the Guinness mascot, unofficially or officially, has always been the toucan balancing the pint on his beak. I thought it was adorable. Weirdest of all, however, was the fish with the bicycle. Apparently, back in the day, there was an advertising campaign about a woman needing a man like a fish needs a bicycle. I didn't really fully get it, but it was a trip to see in person. I even got to fiddle around with a replica of the official Guinness harp. But the star of the show was at the top of the building. That's right, a full bar with complimentary beer. In my travels, I often find that the local specialty is not usually appreciated by the locals. However, when I visited Ireland, I couldn't help but notice that the locals drank Guinness more than anything else. It's a local treasure. Everybody seems to love it, and I can see why. Unlike other countries, there is something very special about drinking Guinness in Ireland. It just tastes better. It's a truly special thing to enjoy a Guinness in Ireland. So many conversations, so many exchanges of minds were shared over pints in local pubs, restaurants, and out on the street. And I'm so lucky for the experience.